go. Fine. If you don't believe Jesus died for your sins, you're going to burn in hell forever.
Right.
Is that true or false?
False.
What?
False.
Cannot be both. It is either true or false. Is that true or false?
False.
How do you know?
Yeah. I don't, because it's day one foundations for me, to be honest with you.
You don't know. But you think it's false. You believe it's false.
Yeah.
Does what you believe count in terms of if it's true or false?
Yeah. No.
Oh, since
No.
Yeah?
No.
Let me give you an easier question. My mother has a cat. True or false? Well, I don't believe she does. Well, I don't care what you believe. She either does or she doesn't. It doesn't depend on what you believe. So there are some things called objective truth, which means it's a fact. Which has got nothing to do with what you believe or what you hope or what you want or what you feel. London is the capital of England, whether you like it or not. That's it. It's a fact. You with me? Strawberry is the best flavor of ice cream. True or false?
False.
Neither. It's not true or false. It's not a fact. That's a matter of preference. Some people refer to that as subjective truth. It's a bad term because there's no such thing as subjective truth. If it's subjective, it's not truth. Truth is true or not. Cape Town is the most beautiful city in the world. True or false? I think so. I don't think it doesn't matter. It's a matter of preference. By the way, I think it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world for the last 10 years running. But whatever. So some things are true, some things are false, some things are a matter of opinion. That's it. So you've got to work out what is true. What is true? So I grew up in England, not religious, but strong Jewish identity. Went to Manchester University, studied philosophy, and I was a dance music DJ, drum and bass, hard house, all the psychedelic stuff that comes along with that lifestyle. And I realized that I wasn't particularly happy, my friends weren't happy, no one was particularly happy, living meaningful, deep lives. And then my grandfather died when he was 100. And before he died, he said to me, "You don't want to live an I should have life." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "When you get to 90, there's not so much to look forward to, you start looking back on your life. And there's not a lot you can do about it at that point. And you start thinking to yourself, I should have traveled more, should have worked out what the point of life is, should have worked out how to be happy, should have spent more time with my kids, less time at work, should have not let what other people think about me affect me so much, and told my wife more often how much I love her, whatever it is, should have been to the gym." So when you're 90, most 90-year-olds regret their lives in general. So he said, you need to live your life from this age, that when you get to 90, you're not regretting your life, you think to yourself, I had a great life. So I developed 3 questions of living a well-thought-out life. Number 1 question of living a well-thought-out life. What do you believe? What do you believe? Many people have not really thought about this question so much. So I used to walk around finding the oldest people, anyone who I thought was over the age of 90. I didn't tell them that was the criteria, but I said to them, do you believe in life after death? What do you think is the number 1 answer for someone quite close to death? To the question, do you believe in life after death?
Yes.
Yes is not the number 1 answer.
No. Really?
The number 1 answer was, I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe, I hope so, I'm not sure. So now, my friend, you're going to die soon. I didn't say that. And it makes a significant difference. If there's no life after death, do whatever you like here, brilliant, there's no consequences. If there is life after death, maybe you'll be able to work out what you're meant to be doing here in order to enjoy life after death. It's a very, very important question that most people don't really think about. What is the purpose of life? People don't think about that, apart from when they're stoned in their garden when they're 14, and never think about it ever again. So what do you believe? Here's a statement. It's either true or false, by the way, it doesn't matter what you believe. Not kosher food is spiritually bad for you as a Jew. It doesn't make you a bad person, it's not moral. If you eat not kosher food, you're not immoral, you're not a bad person, it's just spiritually not good for you. Is that true or false?
True.
True or false? You're allowed to say, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Great, that's fine. No, fine. By the way, I think you should work it out before you eat not kosher food. Because if I say there's poison in that water, and you're like, well, I'm not sure if there is or not, I think you should test it before you drink it. But in general, it's important to know what you believe. So, not Jewish woman cannot be your soulmate. You can have a perfect marriage. You could be the best parents. You could have a good physical relationship, emotional relationship. You could have the same beliefs and values, but you cannot be spiritually, you cannot be soulmates. Is that true or false? Well, it's either true or false. So you want to work that out before you choose who you marry. So the very important thing is lots of people go through their life, they don't really know what they believe. So let's work out, well, did Jesus die for your sins or not? Very important to know that. By the way, if he did, but you're the best Orthodox Jew in the world, you're going to burn in hell. So you've got to work it out. It's like, well, I can't know. So the second question is, why do you believe everything you believe? There are two main reasons you believe everything you believe. The first reason you believe everything you believe is because that's what you were told. You grew up there. So if you were born in India, you'd believe in many gods, and depending on what village you were born in, you'd have a specific, your main god. If you were born in China, you'd be a communist. If you were born in Gaza, you'd want to kill us. If you were born in Mea Shearim, you'd all be married and have 8 children by now. Struggle. If you're born wherever you're born, New Jersey, you'll be some kind of Jewish-ish. That's what you are. That's what you are. So basically, 99% of people are just a product of their society. You believe what you believe because that's what you're told. 98% of religious Jews are just religious Jews because they were born into a religious Jewish home. 98% of religious Christians are religious Christians because they were born into a religious Christian home. So I'd say 98% of people are just what they are because that's where they were born and that's what they were told. Not a good reason for believing something, by the way. Number 2 reason you believe everything you believe is because you want it to be true. You believe that you want to be true. So if you're going out with a beautiful Japanese woman for 3 years and you want to marry her, and I say she can't be your soulmate, you'll be like, I don't believe that. I know she's my soulmate. I feel it. And you just don't want that to be true, so you don't believe it. I don't believe in life after death. Why not? Because I don't want there to be consequences. I do believe in life after death. Why? Because I'm scared that death is the end and what would be. So you believe, it's really called cognitive bias or confirmation bias. Slightly different. Cognitive bias means you basically believe what you want to believe. Confirmation bias is, and therefore you look for things to support what you believe, and you ignore things that go against what you believe. Good? So you believe everything you believe because you were told it, or because you're rebelling against it, by the way, which is not much better. If you want it to be true, it makes your life easier, convenient, better. I don't believe not kosher food is bad for me. Why? Because I love Big Macs. Third question, very, very important question. How do you know you're right? How do you know what you believe is true? How do you know you are right? Someone once asked Gandhi, he said to him, are you a Hindu? And Gandhi said, I am a Hindu, I'm also a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim, and a Jew. And that is so beautiful, and pluralistic and universal, and completely logical. Because you cannot be a Christian and a Buddhist. They believe fundamentally different things. And he definitely wasn't a Jew. So how do you know what you believe is true? It's a fundamentally important question. Any answers to that question? Yeah?
Proof.
Good. There's only one rational answer to the question, how do you know you are right? There's only one rational answer to that question. It isn't because I feel it, or I was told it, or because I know, or because I want it. One answer is evidence. I have evidence for it. So how do you know your mother? God bless you. How do you know your mother is your mother? Because you have a birth certificate and a DNA test, and you look like her, and there are photos, and everyone, you've got mannerisms like her, and everyone says she's your mother. That's very, very compelling evidence that she is your mother. You don't just say, well, I believe she's my mother. You know she's your mother. How do you know there's a country called China? Because everything's made there. And you've had Chinese food. And I lived in China. And you can go on a plane and go to China. And you see it on the map. How do you know you have a hand? Because you can see it. You can play the piano with it. You can punch someone with it. Other people can see it. Good? So the only rational answer to number 3 is evidence. And therefore, what is the only rational answer to number 2? Evidence. What do you believe? I believe that God wrote the Torah. I believe that the Torah cannot have been written by a human being. Why do you believe that? Not because I was taught that or because I feel it, because I have evidence for it. And how do you know you're right? Because I have evidence for it. What do you believe? I believe that this woman is my mother. Why do you believe that? Because I've got pictures and birth certificates, I've got evidence for it. How do you know you're right? Because I've got evidence for it. Good. So basically, I was at Manchester University, and I left Manchester University. I lived in Asia for 6 years. Not going to tell you my whole story because you're going to buy my book. Discount price, 70 shekels if you buy it by the end of the week. And I speak Thai, Japanese, Hindi, and Korean. I got a black belt in Taekwondo, a brown belt in Aikido, did lots of 10-day silent meditation retreats. That's in an orphanage in India. Guess which one's me, brother?
The little brown.
It's the one on
The
the
little brown. On the right.
All the way to the left.
All the way on
All
the
the way to the
right.
right.
I look very different with a beard. This is in Nepal, Annapurna base camp. This is teaching Buddhism to Buddhist monks. This is in Shaolin. This is in Laos. Basically, so I spent 6 years basically being a Buddhist and meditating in caves and jungles and doing that life because I wanted to find what's true. I had these questions. What is life all about? And I realized pretty quickly that it isn't the Western secular life. Everyone's miserable. Even if they're really, really rich. They're not particularly happy living meaningful lives with amazing marriages and it's not clearly not working. Western secular model not working. I hope you get that by now. So I like what's true. But then I started asking a question. I love Buddhism, but I asked my master, how do you know this is true? So he said, because it's what Buddha said. And I said, yeah, that's what Buddha said, but how do you know it's true? Buddha says you don't have a soul. Hinduism says you do have a soul. Buddhism and atheism say you don't have a soul. Who's right? Sam Harris? Is Sam Harris right? Sam Harris, world leading atheist, Jew, Shmuel Binyamin. Yes.
Doesn't Buddhism come from Hinduism?
Pardon?
Doesn't Buddhism come from
Yes, and that was Buddhist main breakaway. From Atman to Anatta. Hinduism teaches Atman, that there is a soul. Buddhism teaches Anatta, there is no soul. That was one of Buddha's chidush. Chidush of Buddha. So fine, 6 years in Asia, and I kept asking, I said, Hindus, Christians, Muslims. I lived on this small island, Jeju Island, off the coast of Korea. That's where I got my black belt in Taekwondo. And there are lots of American Christian missionaries and Mormons there. And they saw a Jew, they were very excited. They love Jews because they get extra credit in heaven if they get a Jew. And I was like not the greatest Jew at the time. I think we spoke in the last class. I used to meditate in Buddhist temples all day and I ate dog and snake and I wasn't exactly a practicing Jew, but one thing, never ate pig. We used to go out with all my Korean friends and it was like, oh, this Buddhist English man, and they'd order beef, not kosher beef, but it was beef, and they'd pick and they were like, here, have some, and I was like, no. And they were like, why not? And I said, I'm a Jew. Jews don't eat pig. That was my thing. Jews don't eat pig. Oh, okay. You're like the worst Jew we've ever met. Get out of the Buddhist temple then, Jew. Why do you eat snake? Black belt says, yeah, I had a snake suit. It was nice. The other Jewish Sandy Koufax moment, by the way, I played football for the Presbyterian Church team. And I'm English. I played football. I did. I played against Frank Lampard twice. If anyone knows who Frank Lampard is, became the England captain because of me, by the way. Different story. So I was the top goal scorer for the Presbyterian Church football team, and then there was an island-wide church tournament. All the church teams in the league, and we were playing the final in the World Cup stadium. Because the World Cup, what year was the World Cup in Japan and Korea? Anyway, it was that year. And one of the World Cup stadiums was in there. Brazil had played there, Germany played there. And we were probably going to get to the final. And they said, but there's one rule, to be in the team, you have to come to church on Sunday. To be qualified for the team. I was like, Jew, don't go to church. I used to sit in churches all the time to meditate and stuff. But when I was told that you have to come to service, I was like, no, Jews don't go to church.
So it's rebellious.
And they didn't win. I was like, see, God of the Jews. Fool. Anyway, so that's 6 years in Asia. And then I was going to go and canoe down the Amazon. And I stopped in Israel for 3 weeks. And I was talking to this guy, I was on a kibbutz. And this one religious guy said to me, you know, I told him my story. And he said, but you're Jewish, why don't you study Judaism? And I said, because Judaism's not spiritual. And you believe there's an angry man in the sky who's going to punish you if you don't do stupid rules. And religious people don't actually seem not only spiritual, they don't seem particularly nice, actually. That's a bit socially awkward. And you believe that, you know, you've got to kill animals to make the man in the sky happy. And a religious Jewish woman just has to wear black and be miserable and make babies and not speak. And a religious Jewish man has to wear a black hat and behave badly on the airplane, and God needs me to praise him the whole time as if so insecure and egotistical. God, you're so great and holy and right. God, you're so insecure. What's wrong with you? So I had a long list of why Judaism was bad. But he said, go to Sfat. Sfat is the spiritual capital, it's like Nepal of Israel. And I started learning, and I found out that we don't believe there's an angry man in the sky. We believe in infinite consciousness. And I was like, I get that. I got that idea down. I believe that you have a soul, and the soul is an aspect of infinite consciousness. So I was like, I'm down with that, I guess. And then I started learning deeper and deeper, and I thought, oh my goodness, now I actually see what's going on behind all these, what's going on. But then I had one question. What was my one question? How do you know it's true? I said, I see, you know what? Torah is very powerful and spiritual and amazing. I just got a question. How do you know it's true? Because there's a Korean girl. That's not in my book. And because it's hard to be a religious Jew. There's a lot to do. I can't eat whatever I want to eat, go where I want to go. There's a lot of restrictions when you're a religious Jew. So although I think Judaism is amazing and empowering, and actually all the restrictions are not restrictions, or pieces of advice for you to become great. Like when you train martial arts or you learn the keyboard, or rules aren't restrictions, the rules are what give you the power to express yourself fully. So when my martial arts masters were like, you can't stand like that, you have to stand like that, and you have to push-ups on your knuckles, it wasn't a restriction for me, it was showing me how to become great. But I didn't see the Torah like that. Easier to be a Buddhist. I said, how do you know it's true? So they said, go to Aish in Jerusalem. They have something called the Discovery Seminar. Discovery Seminar, the world's most popular Jewish seminar ever. Over 250,000 people did it. Started in the 1970s. There was an Israeli outreach organization called Arachim, and they started doing these seminars in Hebrew. And lots of secular Israelis were starting to become observant, upset lots of people. So there was this newspaper, very anti-religious newspaper called Haaretz. So they sent 3 reporters, journalists, to one of the Arachim seminars to basically go and show them. And all 3 of them became religious. And Rabbi Noach Weinberg, when he set up Aish, said, we need this. So we basically translated it, and we found other evidence, and that is the Discovery Seminar. The Discovery Seminar is evidence. Rational, logical, empirical, philosophical, scientific evidence that there's no way a human being could have written the Torah. There are things in the Torah no human being would ever have written or could ever have known at the time we know that the Torah was written. Before we get on, so basically I walked from the Lebanese border to Eilat. I saw the information, I said this is good evidence, but I'm going to try and refute it because I wanted to go and canoe down Amazon. And I sent it to my atheist friends and friends from university that I'd done philosophy with, and then I decided to walk this 40-day walk down the whole of Israel, raised $18,000 for orphanages, and no one could refute the evidence. And I've been teaching it for 15 years. No one has ever given me a solid refutation of the evidence. What is so good now, though, is we're going to present the evidence to you, and not only are you going to send it to all your friends and your parents and say, please help me refute it, you're going to go on ChatGPT. And you're going to rip up the evidence. I want you to sit and rip up the evidence and then bring it back to me and Dubov, and we'll show you that it's wrong, and then you'll become an Orthodox Jew.
So we're all going to get you by the end of this?
Pardon?
We're all going to get you by the end of this?
Yeah, you should do. I got a much better life than you. You'd want to. One of the kids actually said to me the other day, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. And I was like, no, you would actually. I've got an amazing wife, amazing family, amazing passion, and I live an amazing life. I'm happier than anyone else you know. So Be'ezrat Hashem, if you merit it, you will someday be almost happy. Yes?
So I guess you had experience of multiple religions before you really deeply dove into Judaism.
Correct.
And
I got to yeshiva when I was 29. The first time I put on tefillin, I was 30 years old.
so none of that. My point is like none of that grabbed you. It's something that you saw like with Judaism.
No, it grabbed me very much. I loved Buddhism. I loved all that Eastern stuff.
This was stronger.
It wasn't spiritually strong necessarily, but it was true. It had evidence that I was always spiritual, but also very intellectual and rational.
Right.
So I'm like, if you can't prove it, I'm not believing. So if someone comes up to you and says, if you don't believe Jesus died for your sins, you're going to burn in hell, you'll say, that's very interesting, what's your evidence? And they won't be able to, well, there's something called the case for Christ, but it's ridiculous. So if anyone ever says anything to you, say, interesting, but what's your evidence? Show me the evidence, I want to see evidence. So once I saw evidence, I was like, this is true. Someone said to me the other day, I read your book, you're such a truth seeker. I said, I'm not a truth seeker, I found the truth. I'm a truth liver now. There are 3 levels. One is called faith. Faith means I have a strong conviction, although it has no evidence. I really believe it, I'd give my life for it. He died for my sins. What's your evidence? I believe. So that's ridiculous. It hasn't rained for 2 months. The weather forecast said it's not going to rain for another 2 months. There are no clouds in the sky. I come up to you and said, God just told me it's going to rain this afternoon, buy this umbrella. You're an idiot if you buy it. No evidence. And there's something called belief. Belief is there's some evidence. It rained twice last week. The weather forecast said there's a 30% chance of rain, and there are clouds in the sky. Then there's something called knowledge. We want you to have knowledge. Knowledge is beyond a reasonable doubt evidence. There's so much evidence that it would be ridiculous not to believe it. For example, that your mother is your mother. Yeah? I'll just tell you. Knowledge is beyond us. Knowledge is beyond us. So, knowledge is so much evidence that it will be irrational not to believe it. Do you understand what that means? So if I came up to you and I said, actually your mother's not your mother. Is it possible your mother's not your mother, by the way? Possible?
Yeah.
Could have been. And I say, but I got a birth certificate, and you say, yeah, but they forged the birth certificate. And I say, I've got a DNA test, and they say, yeah, but they switched the DNA test. If you don't have evidence that they forged the birth certificate and switched the DNA test, I'm not going to believe you. Oh, and the pictures? Yeah, that's not you. It's a baby who looks a bit like you. So at some point, if someone doesn't have evidence against my evidence, we basically, rational people go with the evidence. Is there anything that's 100% beyond doubt? How about you have a body? Is that 100% beyond doubt? No, you could be a brain in a jar. You'd be an idiot to believe you're a brain in a jar because there's no evidence for that, and there's lots and lots and lots of evidence you have a body. Is it possible that the whole universe was created this morning at 7:30? Absolutely. What do you mean? I remember yesterday. No, you were created this morning at 7:30 with all those memories and all the... So it is possible. You'd be an idiot to believe it because there's no evidence. So just because it's possible that it's not, that's not any evidence. It doesn't... Is it possible there's no country called China? Yes, the whole world is in on a conspiracy against you. It's all really Mongolian. You're an idiot. So knowledge means I have so much evidence it would be ridiculous at that point not to actually now call your mum and say, Mum, the rabbi says you're not my mum. You'd be psychotic. Good?
Wow.
I think that's the end anyway. So, who wrote the Torah? That's good. Well, we got 1 minute. Just quick that. There are only 2 real opinions here. Either God or man. When we say wrote the Torah, Moshe, we believe actually did the written word, but God, he just dictated it to him. So, who authored the Torah? So it's either God or humans. Those are your 2 options. So it's either God 3,338 years ago, Mount Sinai. That's what I believe, and I'll give you lots of evidence. Or the other thing is called the documentary hypothesis, which says that it was written about 2,500 years ago by a redactor, an editor who took lots of texts, different texts, and basically interwove them, put them together, and came up with the Torah that we have today. That is called the documentary hypothesis. I put hypotheses there, plural, because there's many of them, they don't agree with each other. And their whole thing is biblical criticism is all about literary styles. There are different literary styles in the Torah, so there's no way one person wrote it. There are different names of God in the Torah, so there's no way one person wrote it. We're like, yeah, we don't believe one person wrote it. We believe God wrote it. I'll give you a whole class one day on biblical criticism, which seems very strong, but is not strong at all. But the only important thing for you to know is that even those people who don't believe God wrote the Torah agree that the document that we have in the Aron HaKadosh, in the Holy Ark, in every single Reform, Conservative, Progressive, Orthodox, Modox, every shul from New Zealand to Canada has the same document in it. Even the people who don't believe God wrote it believe that that document is 2,500 years old. That's all you have to understand. So what would you like to see in this document that might suggest that a human didn't write it? What sort of evidence? What might evidence look like? Predictions. Extraordinary predictions. Not just predictions. Why? Because human beings don't make extraordinary predictions because they're unlikely to come true and you'll look stupid. That's why there are no extraordinary predictions in the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or the Bible or the Upanishads or the Dharmapada. What else might you want to see that suggests that a human being did not write it? Things that no human being could possibly have known 2,500 years ago. Things that a human being wouldn't have said. There was no reason to say it. So that's the type of evidence we're looking at. So I was once speaking to someone and he said, no, it's ridiculous because you're looking into the Torah trying to find evidence that God wrote it, and I'm looking in the Torah trying to find evidence that God didn't. Basically that's cognitive bias, confirmation bias. And I said, no, let's just look into the Torah and see what it says and ask ourselves, would and could a human being have written this? And if not, then I know a human being didn't written. Are there any questions?
When are we going to get to continue this?
10 o'clock now. Rav Gav's going to give you the first piece of evidence. By the way, we want you to argue. When sometimes we do discovery, and Rabbi Dubov, I walk out and he says, how was it? And I'm like, awful. And he said, oh, no one repeated it. I'm like, yeah, they just brought it off. So we want you to get in there, pull out your phones, not during the class. After class, pull out your phone, get your chat GBT, let's fight it out. Yes.
So when you say God wrote the Torah,
God authored. God dictated the Torah and Moses wrote it.
that's what was going to be my question. When I think of the Torah, obviously, like a physical scroll, like what was that scene like where like that can become like a physical, like...
We believe that on Mount Sinai, 3,588 years ago, God spoke to Moses, and Moses had some paper and ink, and he wrote down the whole Torah up to Parshas Yisro, which is where the Torah was given. God also taught him the 613 mitzvahs, he didn't write them all down. And then for the next 38 years, in the desert, Moses went back into the special meeting tent of Moed, and God carried on dictating. So it was really a 38-year dictation.
Isn't it possible that as a human being he made an error through that, like receiving that information?
That's a great question, and we shall investigate that. But if God did, if I can prove it's God, I'm thinking that God wouldn't allow an error to be said in his name. God would be like, dude, correct that.
Yeah.
But maybe another question is, but maybe it got passed down not very well, broken telephone. How do we know that the original text was passed down accurately?
Are they going to answer that?
Oh yeah. Yes?
Could one not argue that predictions are just lucky guesses?
Pardon?
Could one not argue that predictions are just lucky guesses?
Why would no other religion put predictions in? Lucky guess. Because if your lucky guess doesn't come true, then you didn't benefit, not only did you not benefit, you just ruined your whole authority. There's no benefit for putting in extraordinary predictions. Someone's going to break their leg. That's not extraordinary, but an extraordinary crazy prediction, if it doesn't come true, which is very unlikely to, then you just disprove in your book. You put something in your book that is going to disprove your book. That's stupid.
Can you give an example of an extraordinary prediction?
Rav Gav is going to give you 7
Excellent.
in the next hour.
Last question: are the writers of The Simpsons talking to the same?
Yes.